Their cousin took a picture of something flying over Plum Island off the coast of Long Island in 2001, and whatever was in that photograph did not look like anything that should have been flying. So, if you're from Long Island or you grew up in the area, like I did, there's a good chance that you've heard of stories about Plum Island. And for anyone who hasn't, Plum Island is a small island sitting just off the eastern end of Long Island, and it's near Orient Point. And for decades, it was home to a federal animal disease research facility. And because access to the island was heavily restricted, it became one of those places that naturally attracted many, many rumors. And growing up there, we all heard, all these crazy theories, right? Secret experiments, strange animals, the Montauk Monster that washed up, government projects, weird things washing up on the beaches. Stranger Things is based off of that area. Most of it was probably just local legend mixed with the fact that there was this mysterious government facility sitting on an island that none of us could simply just walk to or, swim up to or boat to, whatever. But when you're a kid growing up there, Plum Island also becomes our own little version of Area 51. And you can see it, it's there, but you don't really know what's actually happening there. And that brings me to something that a viewer claims happened to him or his cousin. Now, obviously, I have no way to verify what he saw, and there could be a perfectly normal explanation for the photograph. So take this story for what it is, and you can decide for yourselves. Now, it was sometime in the warmer months of 2001. His cousin was out near the eastern end of Long Island, not far from Orient Point, and he was looking out across the water in direction of Plum Island. And this was before everybody had a high-quality camera sitting in their back pocket. He had one of those little, point-and-shoot cameras with him. You'd have to roll it back to get the next picture. The kind where, you took your pictures, you finished the roll, and then you had to wait until they got developed and go to the store and pick them up and, see what actually came of them. Now, he was looking across the water when something caught his attention in the sky right away. And at first he thought maybe it was like a bird, or maybe a kite, except it wasn't moving like one. He described it as a black blob. That's really the only way that he could explain it. There was no obvious shape to it. There was no wings, no tail, no lights, no sound. There was no nothing. Just this completely black, almost shapeless mass suspended in the sky over the water. And in my mind, I pictured it like the Venom blob. And the strangest part was that it didn't seem to be flying. It was just floating, just sitting there, he said. And the wind was coming across the water pretty hard that afternoon, and you could see birds flying against it, and everything on the surface of the water looked, like was being pushed in that same direction. But this thing wasn't, reacting to the wind like the birds. So his cousin stood there watching it, trying to figure out, what it was that he was looking at. And he thought maybe it was a bunch of balloons that were tangled together, but it wasn't rising. He thought maybe it was smoke. But it wasn't breaking apart or changing shape the way that smoke normally would. It just hung there, clumped together. And then it started moving as one, very slowly, not up, not down, not sideways, but actually back towards Plum Island. And that's when his cousin grabbed his camera and he raised it up and he aimed toward this object and he took a picture. Then another, and by the time that he lowered the camera, the black mass had stopped yet again. And he said it remained completely motionless for several seconds, and then something happened that still bothers him. It dropped, not like something like falling out of the sky or, like plummeting like that. He described it more of like an elevator suddenly descending straight down and very, very fast. It dropped toward the water and it disappeared from his view. And his cousin actually waited to see if there was going to be like a splash or something like that. And there wasn't one. He kept staring at that exact spot where it had disappeared and nothing ever came back up of it, So eventually he left, and because this was 2001, there was no photograph to immediately pull up on your phone and zoom in and see what you got. He didn't even know if he'd actually captured the thing at all. So several days later, he got the roll back after being developed, and most of the pictures were completely normal, right? There were, some family pictures and scenery and random shots from around Long Island, out in the Montauk area, and then he got to that picture from that day, and there it was, clear as day, above the water in the distance was this dark object. and it was completely black, irregular looking shape against the lighter sky. You see Plum Island in the background, and he had actually caught it. But the photograph created more questions than answers, because once you actually, could like freeze the object in place and look at it, it looks even stranger. And I am showing it, but it didn't have the recognizable silhouette of a plane. It didn't look like a helicopter, and despite his original assumption, it didn't really resemble a bird or anything. It just looked like this black mass hanging in the sky. And he showed it to family members, and everybody had different explanations. Oh, it's a bird, it's something on the film, it's a balloon, it's probably a helicopter really far away. And maybe one of them are right? I'm not disproving any of that. But his cousin kept coming back to the same problem, that, he had watched it with his own eyes, and whatever was in that photograph had been stationary against the wind before moving sideways and then dropping down into the water. So years later, he said there was one detail that he never really thought about or really talked about, because he thought it made the story sound absolutely ridiculous. While he was standing there watching the object, he remembered feeling something strange, like not like physically ill or weird, more like that instinctive feeling you get when you're somewhere alone and suddenly realize that, something else is aware of your existence and knows that you're there. He said there was one moment when the black mass stopped moving, and even though it was far away, he couldn't shake the feeling like it had stopped because it was watching him, or he just felt like he was being watched. Then he raised the camera, took the picture, and shortly after it disappeared. Now, do I think his cousin photographed some secret experiment escaping from Plum Island, or another, Montauk Monster or Stranger Things event? I have absolutely no idea. There are plenty of ordinary things out there that can look bizarre, and they can be easily explained. And when photographed from a distance, especially on an old camera, and Plum Island's reputation makes it very easy to connect something unexplainable with all the stories that we've heard growing up out there. But I do think that's what makes the photograph so creepy. It doesn't prove anything. It's just a picture from 2001 of a black shapeless object floating over the water near one of the most mysterious places where we grew up and hearing about. And, maybe it was a balloon, maybe it was a bird, maybe it was a kite, maybe there is a completely boring explanation that nobody ever thought of. But his cousin is very adamant about one thing, and that is whatever that black thing was, it wasn't being carried by the wind. It was moving on its own. Like, it was like sentient, like it was very much alive, he felt. And the last place that he saw it heading to was Plum Island. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you're from the area, if you have your own stories, let me know.